So like I said, we need to deconstruct this stuff and get it ready for us to remap that geometry. I'm going to do two parts pretty quick. The first is under surface and analysis. I'm going to deconstruct BREP. And I'm going to pull that onto my subsurf panels. That's my ISO trimmed panels. That's those ones in the back. All is well so far, right?
Yes.
Now, with this panel, I need to also deconstruct the original subdivided panels. So that means not the one that's been offset, because I'm going to map from the offset surface back to the original surface. That part makes sense conceptually, right? So I'll take a copy of my original subdivided surfaces, like that, make another wireless, and drag it down. That's here. And then I'm just going to copy that deconstruct BREP and I'll plug it into that. It's going to look a little crazy because it actually shows you the panel. Feel free to show or hide whatever you need. If you care very much about hiding it, just hide it like that. So here's what's significant. When you use offset surface, the direction of the new panels that you create are going to follow the same order and organization of the original panel. So if point number, let me grab my point display. You guys don't have to do this, I just want to show you. 0 to 5. Plug that in. Go there. There we go. So if 0 is this point, and 1 is this point, 2 is that, and 3 is that, the same is true for the original non-offset surface vertices. So when I map point 0 from one system to point 0 from another system, that's going to give me an edge from here to here. And then I just do the same thing to create a 4-point surface from those 4 system points. So let's start with the first one. And everything is going to be created off of these two systems. But I'm going to do something that's going to help you and me both greatly. And that's copy all that list item stuff that I created before so I don't have to do it again. Right? Because I already have, you know, point 0, point 1, 2, and 3. So why don't I just go up here and copy these. Sorry, I accidentally clicked that. And this and that. So if you need to individually click each one, you can hold shift and it'll add the selection. It's going to be a little annoying because when I copy and paste it, it's still going to retain the original connections, but we'll just clean that up. I'll give you a moment to get caught up before I actually clean it up. All right, moving on. We're going to start to actually map this. What we'll need to do is take the vertices from our deconstruct BREP. But be aware that what we're deconstructing is, I'm going to look at the information here for you. What we're actually deconstructing is each of these panels, and we're trying to grab all 4 vertices for each of those panels. So you see that relationship? So put the vertices in L for all 4 of them. And then we're going to have to do the same thing below for this system. And then take the vertices here and plug those in as well. So I actually, I deleted that display of the point list. Turns out I actually need it. So I'm going to put that back in. Display, point list. Let me just grab this one here. Whoops. 0 to 5. There we go. So it might be a good idea for you to add this on so that you can see what your point list is reading, because it might be slightly different than my point list. And you'll need to be aware of what you're mapping to what. So I'm going to start off with my left side panel, and I'm going to do 0 to 3 to 0 to 3. Because I know that both my offset and my original panel are the same order. So let me grab a surface, 4-point surface, and I'm going to go 0, 3 in the first system. Then I'm also going to take 0 and 3 in the second system. It looks like my order is a little bit backwards. So what happens here is I went from 0 in this system to 3 in this system to 0 in that system to 3 in that system. So the order really should be 0, 3, 3, 0. Does that make sense? Yeah, I know. It's a little weird. I'll recap it, but C needs to be 3, and then 0 needs to be D. Okay, and that's how you get that panel. That takes getting used to. You just need to understand that everything that's created by Rhino and Grasshopper has a direction, right? A positive and a negative. So when you create a line, for instance, right, between 2 points, one of them has to be 0.0, the other one has to be 0.1, right? So the same thing is true here when you have a surface, a 4-point surface. All 4 of those points have to be read in order. And if you cross-reference that second and third value, you're going to get like an hourglass or like an X. That's what that was. So this is what you have to do. What I'm going to do here is pause this for a moment. I'm going to give you a chance to catch up, and then I'm going to challenge you to build the other panel. Yeah. So let me just preface this by saying if you have your domain reduction sort of in the middle of nowhere, like I set this up so that when you look at it, right, this is a sunshade in the top right corner. So my window, this offset panel is going to be kind of like a window. So I justified that to the top right corner, and I only need to make 2 panels to finish it off, sort of. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a schematic exercise. So what you're going to have to do is maximize in the proper direction. For me, it's V. For me, it's in the maximum direction. For you, it might be the minimum, depending on how you built your surface. But just make sure that you get that thing in the top right corner. Then I want you to do, Then I want you to do this whole exercise, and then I want you to do it again for the second panel. What questions do you have?
What's the slider? Is it just the same?
The slider is just how big the text is for my point display. Any questions? Okay. Any general questions before I troubleshoot with you? Okay. So the solution here is exactly the same system. You're just going to use different points, right? You guys all pretty much figured that out by now. Just like I went from 0 to 3 to 3, ignore that color there, the dark cyan or aqua or whatever. I went from 0 to 3 to 3 to 0. I need to do the same thing for the inside system. So I'm going to go from 1 to 0 to 0 to 1. So I'm going to go from system 1, index 1, system 1, index 0, to system 2, index 0, to system 2, index 1. That's it. Okay, so don't worry about the fact that we didn't close off the other corner edges. You can do that if you want to. That wasn't the important part of this exercise. What I really wanted to accomplish was this system that shows up this way. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see in this view, right? Looking at it in Grasshopper, you can't really tell what's what. So now's probably an appropriate time to show you how you push it out of and I'm just going to do this in a very truncated fashion, but how you push it out of Grasshopper into Rhino, so you can look at like shadows and stuff like that in case you really want to.
Bake.
You bake it, yeah. So the way that I like to do this is I take my final geometry in each of these segments and I just put that into a certain layer. And that part's all up to you and how you want to manage the file, what layers you want to put it on, whether they're assigned materials and stuff like that. But these two panels, I can select both of them like this. And bake is either selectable by right-clicking on the component and baking, but that's only going to bake that one component. You would middle mouse click button and go to bake here in order to bake multiple items. But that, I think that auto bakes it. Yeah, I guess it does auto bake it onto default layer. Darn. All right, so I haven't done it that way really. Usually what I do is this. I'll grab a param. I like to use these params quite a bit. You guys will come to learn. So I'll grab a param, and I'm going to name that something. Like I'll call it, and there are better ways of baking. I will say there are some really cool like tricks and stuff, but I'm giving you the very basic way of doing it right now. So I'm going to call this bake truncated surf. And I'll put both of these in there. So that's one bake item. This one is, I don't need to put a param on that one, so that's fine. And then I have my actual panels here. So this is important because I'm going to put a param on these surfaces here, and I'm going to call this, oh, whoops, that's vertices. Make sure you pull it from F, the faces. Put that in there. Right click. I'm going to call this bake glazing surf. And if you really care, you can do this whole thing where you make it a wireless connection. That part's up to you. I don't know how you want to do it. For me, I feel like that's a little bit cleaner, so I'm going to do that. So let's bake it. Okay, so I'm going to let's see, how many layers do I have? Okay, good. So I'm going to put my sunshades, which are these. I'm going to right-click and bake those, and it gives you the little layer thing right here. You just pick what layer it's going to go on. Layer 1, hit OK, and it goes there. That's the very basic form of it.
So bake that one?
Okay. Which part? Just the baking part?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm going to do it a few times. So that created the geometry in Rhino now for the solid differences, right? Those little awnings. So let me show you again with my glazing surfaces, okay? So bake, you right-click it, go to the bake, and you just pick which layer it goes on. So I'll put my glazing surfaces, click it on layer 2, and hit OK. I'm not going through like the display modes and decorations, all that stuff yet. I'm just showing you how to get it into Rhino when you need it. So you hit OK, that goes out. Then I'm going to take my truncated surfaces, I'm going to right click, say bake, and I'm going to put them on layer 3. Hit OK. So if you want to see it in Rhino, you can just select everything, hide it all, and then go into Rhino. All right. So now you can do like shade studies and stuff like that.
What did you connect the bake glazing surface to?
That's a good question. The glazing surface one I just pulled back from my Deconstruct BREP. The Deconstruct BREP that created those interior things there. Okay?
Did we turn that off, right?
Yeah, I turned it all off so that you can see it on the Rhino side. So, that's all we have for today.
That's it?
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah, seriously.
Like, Alright, damn.
So let me just pause for a moment and say that this is something that I usually reserve for like week 6 or 7. You guys are only in like week 3. So
We're good?
yeah.
Let's
You're
have a
doing very
quiz
well.
next time. So we do all this.
What?
We have a quiz to redo this.
You are gonna have a quiz
Oh, shoot.
Wait, what?
on Tuesday. You have a quiz every Tuesday.
Oh, the
It's not really a quiz. It's more of a challenge.
No,
Okay.
we want a quiz.
All right, I'll come around and troubleshoot unless there are general questions. Okay.